What is up, friends? Rob here, the Medicare Minister, and I'm back with a brand new Spitting Fire podcast interview for all of you today. And today I'm with my man, Mr. Victor Gonzalez. Vic, will you say what's up to everyone real quickly?
What's up, everybody? I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man, I know that Victor's going to spit some serious fire today, but before we dive into that, his story, and to hear a little bit more about him, I want to remind all of you that if something that you hear today motivates you, but more than that, inspires you to be the leader that I believe God has called all of you to be, I want you to like, comment, but most importantly, I want you to subscribe and turn on the notifications. That way you're notified every time we drop fresh content like this. And here's why we do this. We do this because I really believe that all of you watching today deserve to win, and that there's a divine creator that has created you on purpose for a purpose. And I pray that something that we talk about today, something that we share today, inspires you to bet on yourself and take action. So Victor, I appreciate you being on, man. I'm so thankful that you're on the Spitting Fire podcast with me today. And what I always like to do just to start out is I always ask every guest to give us a little bit of a backstory. Maybe I like to say a 30,000 foot view. Would you tell us a little bit about your past and some of that transition period up to what you're doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Victor Gonzalez. And my story moving into insurance really starts in my first career, which was as a professional baseball player. So I played independent professional baseball for 2 years for the New York Bears in the Can-Am League, Canadian American League, and had Tommy John surgery, blew out my elbow. So after I blew out my elbow, I knew that the surgery was going to take about a year and a half of recovery, needed to get the surgery. In the meantime, I also needed to pick up a job because minor league doesn't pay much money,
right?
And somehow landed in Fort Myers, Florida. So while I was going through the rehab, I actually picked up coaching. So I started coaching some kids, and one of the kids that I was coaching, his father was a State Farm agent. So he's like, "Hey, man, if you want to make some real money, come work with me. We're hiring for a salesperson." So
sure.
That's how I got into insurance. That was about 8 years ago. Worked for State Farm for about a year, transitioned from there, and working at State Farm, I was like, for the first 3 months, it was just pure cold calling, like cold calling businesses, trying to learn how to get through the gatekeeper to get to the owner. Right. And when I first came in, didn't really understand why I was doing that because we weren't even trying to sell any policies off of it. Commercial wasn't the focus. But later on, now I have a great appreciation for it because I realized what he was doing was, if you could get through the gatekeeper to talk to a business owner, you could talk to anyone about anything. So,
sure.
For someone like me, I like to look at myself as an introvert, and being stuck in the middle of an office and having every door open and everyone listening to me with no experience was a little bit, it's a little rattling, but it really got me into insurance and gave me a great appreciation for outbound dialing and for sales and for insurance. So worked there, moved, and ended up working for the largest Allstate agency in the country, the largest captive in the country, about an $83 million Allstate.
Wow.
Worked there for 4 years, and I did everything. Started off as an appointment setter. By that point, I had already known I wanted to own an insurance agency. So I was like, I'm going to learn everything. If there's anyone to learn from, it's this guy. So started off as an appointment setter, managed offices, sales, built out life and retirement department within the agency, did everything A through Z, bottom, top. And then from there, my son was born and opened my own agency. I'm like, if there's ever a time to do it, it's now. So opened my agency in October 19. I hit my 2-year mark, and then just sold my agency in December. So, and here I am today.
Yeah. So after selling the agency, what I noticed that on Facebook, I've seen you post some of these virtual workshops. Is that more of your mission now today to help other agencies teach them what you've learned?
Absolutely. So, in insurance growth workshops, I own insurance growth workshops, and it kind of was just, I went to a conference and I absolutely loved it. People who go to conferences, the networking is usually the best thing that comes out of it, right? The people that you meet.
Sure.
But one of the things I felt that was lacking a little bit was the educational piece, right? It was a 2-day conference, and I felt like at the end of the 2 days, content wise, I didn't really learn anything new that I felt that I could implement into my agency directly, right? And I feel like that's in part, especially if you're spending a couple of days, right? And then I saw, and she was actually on your podcast before, but Sandra had done a breakout room. And me and Sandra are good friends, work together on a lot of projects and stuff. And she did a breakout room and she crushed it, man. Like there was 50 seats in there. We probably had 60 people in the room, couldn't let anyone else in, had to guard the door up. And I saw a different side of her that I never saw. And she was like, it was like she was looking at herself from a third person view, right? Like outer body experience. Like you can tell she was going through that. And I was like, man, like this is what we need more of, right? Like this is what we need to see on stages and bring to people, like content that people are engaged with, that they're interacting with, and that is just, you can implement it immediately. So when I came out of there, I'm like, all right, I want to get on a stage. I want to try this myself. I want to bring people with me that also want to give back. And I'm like, man, people know who I am, but I'm not big enough to get on a stage yet. So I'm like, all right, well, the only way to get on a stage for me right now, create my own stage. So that's how Insurance Growth Workshop started. And the mission really is to give as much value-driven content and information as possible back to the industry that really, it changed my life. I didn't think I was going to ever have a career outside of baseball. So that's the birth child.
Man, that's awesome. And I definitely want to come back about the conference things. I totally agree. But I want to go back to the baseball thing real quickly, if I can. Yeah. What is one thing, a habit, a discipline, a ritual, a practice that you took from baseball that you've implemented in your other, as you transitioned up to what the success you're having today? Is there something that rises at the top that you think, man, this one thing I learned from this sport that's helped me be successful in these other arenas?
Yeah. And I think any athlete will tell you this. It's the competitive edge, that competitive nature that comes from being an athlete, especially at a high level. And it doesn't need to be like in a negative way, but being a competitor, you always find something to compete with in a healthy way, right? And you're always trying to top yourself or top, who someone that you look up to and you want to get to their level. So I would say the competitiveness that's never left me. And it's
and I want you to expound real quickly too, because I do agree. And forgive me that at my new office here, I have a train that goes through here quite frequently. So you may hear that in the background, but that's just part when you're doing these things. But I do believe there's an unhealthy competition that's bred more out of scarcity, right? Versus a healthy competition. Can you give your take on the difference between an unhealthy and a healthy competition?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think of healthy competition, it's striving to get to the people you look up to, right? The mentors, the people who are doing what you want to accomplish and trying to compete with them to get to their level, right? And you don't need to bash people. You don't need to tear people down. You don't need to take from people. This industry. There's so many opportunities for everyone that everyone should be able to eat and be successful and provide value, right? Whether it's selling insurance or just like in the space that I'm in, there's a million conferences and things that are similar to what I do, right? I feel like I do it differently. But at the end of the day, unhealthy competition is trying to tear down your competitor, right? If you go in enough Facebook groups for insurance or business in general, you see people tearing each other down all the time.
Right.
And I'm just not who I am. I don't like that. Like for me, it's like we can all work together. We can do great things together. We can all build each other up. We can elevate each other. We can all make a lot of money together. We can all educate each other together. And that's the healthy competitive side. So that's the difference between the two.
What do you think the reason is that so many are challenged to get there? Is it ego? Is it pride? Is it, you have a take on that? Why some people can never transition to the healthy side of competition?
That's a really good question. I think maybe people are just, they have fragile egos. Like their egos are fragile. At the end of the day, right? If people feel threatened, you're either fight or flight. And I don't know, man. Like for me, I've never felt that way.
Sure. Me either.
So I can't really I can't put a exact pin on it as to why. Sure. But for me, I feel like people have fragile egos, and if they feel like they're being challenged, or maybe a competitor's coming and it might mess with what they have that's going on.
Sure.
Their natural response is to like shut it down. But yeah, I'm not like that. So
yeah, I think my whole life, if I've always just been a person that loves people and loves to see people win. Right. I get more joy out of motivating, encouraging, inspiring other people to win. I mean, I want to win too, but I love seeing others win. But I love what you said, that you felt like you did your conference, your workshop different. And I heard a guy say it this way one time, that no one can hack you. Right. They may do something similar, but they don't bring your unique gift set, your skill set, your energy, your passion. I mean, there's tons of people doing a podcast like mine, but I truly believe that I bring a level of passion and energy, to the podcast arena. And so I want all those other people to win. Right. So, and I don't worry about that. Actually, I watch all their podcasts to get even better at interviewing people like you and others. And so I totally agree. I think there's a healthy competition that more people, especially in our industry, as you well know, the insurance industry, need to adopt, because it seems to get a little vicious sometimes. It seems to get a little mudslinging and shade throwing, as you well know.
Yeah, 100%. It can definitely get really aggressive and negative, and you see a lot of tearing down each other's company, people, and at the end of the day, like I said, like there's so many opportunities out there, there's so many people out there, there's so many businesses, like we can all win together. Right. And I'm from that mindset. It's like, if I make my teammates better, then we all get better. Right. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I want to win a championship. So yeah. And it takes a team to do that. So thank you for staying there with me just for a few minutes. So I want to go to the conferences thing, because as you well know, we've all been to the conferences that you get motivated, inspired to death, but then you get back on Monday and you're like, I have nothing practical. Right. I have no nuggets, no nuts and bolts. But then you have some that are more academic and nuts and bolts, but you leave there just kind of overwhelmed and really not that motivated, because you feel like you can't get anything done because you've taken away 50 bullet points. I love what you said about trying to find that balance, right? Giving some practicality and some nuts and bolts, but at the same time being encouraging. What is the biggest breakthrough that you feel like you've had when you've attended a conference? Just any kind of conference. Is there a breakthrough, a paradigm shift that you can go back to and go, I know this changed my life at this particular event? Yeah, 100%. It'll be when I attended 8% Nation with Cody Askins. He was on stage and he said, literally, like, take action and figure it out later. Like, just do it. Go figure it out later. And that's when I was like, he's absolutely right. And, for me, I've always been a person who's had a million ideas that I wanted to implement. I've always been too scared to do it, or I never had time, or this and that. And when he said that, something shifted in me. And I'm like, I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to do it. And that's when insurance growth workshops came out. That's when I started going out and offering my service for Google ads. Right now I have insurance growth ads, and it's kind of taken on its own life where, I have insurance growth consulting, training. We're going to be launching a mindset, a mastermind group. So there's so much that has came out of it. And that's the key. So, I'll forever be indebted to Cody for even, me and Cody talk a little. We don't really know each other personally yet, but that one thing stuck with me and really changed everything for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. 8% has been a game changer for me, and I've gotten to know Cody and his family pretty well, and they are the real deal, man. I can say that. By the way, Cody, if you watch this, if you want to give me and Victor a whole bunch of free stuff, we will take it, right? No, I'm just kidding. But no, I totally agree. I think so many people, they discount the power and the influence, the impact that conferences can have, on you, but also in the relationships that you generate through those conferences. So let me ask you this as a leader, because I believe everyone has a calling to be a leader. It doesn't always necessarily mean you have a big stage, but I believe that we all lead in our sphere of influence. Is there one habit that you have cultivated in your life that has helped you be successful in these different arenas? Is there one that you go, man, this one has really been with me, and I learned early on and matured and cultivated that habit?
Yeah, teamwork. Teamwork. You got to bring, if you look at everything that I do, it's never about me. It's about the people that are around me and that I'm doing it for, right? And I've learned from an early age, like in baseball, it's not a one-man show. It's not like the NBA where one person can dominate and take over a game. Baseball, everyone's got to contribute, right? And when I look at my workshops, it's never about me. At my last workshop that I did in Austin, Texas, I wasn't even on stage. I didn't even present, right? It wasn't about me. It was about the presenters on the stage and the people at the workshop. And that's how I've kind of created it. And that's kind of followed me throughout my career. I've, in college, I had horrible issues with one of my coaches, and that was 100% to me because I lost track of that teamwork and that vision. I made it about myself. So, you got to have self-awareness too, right? Like if you're in the wrong, good. you need to have that self-awareness. So I've realized that in my life, I've been a lot happier. I've been a lot more successful when I've focused on the people around me. So
sure. And I want to stop and just look in the camera, and I do this sometimes, but maybe you're a leader today and you want to go to that next level in your business. But the problem is you, right? It's about you, and you're not incorporating your team, empowering your team enough to be the best version of themselves. And I've seen this in ministry as a former pastor, church planner, 20 plus years of ministry, where I got in the way sometimes, right? I know it's a hard truth to look in the mirror and accept that. But what Victor is saying is that it's got to be more than just about you, the leader. You have to be a leader who really empowers their team. It's probably not even the system, even though I believe in systems and processes. It may just be that you're getting in the way, and it's more about you than it is about the team. So back to our regular scheduled programming here, Victor. Let me ask you this. What's one practical tip, some advice that you could give maybe a leader who's watching this today, who says, you know what, Rob, what you and Victor, I don't want to hear it. It's a hard pill to swallow, but yeah, I've made it more about me. What is some practical a tip or a piece of advice that you could give them to help start overcoming that within their organization today?
Start giving back without any expectations of anything in return. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
You give, and eventually you'll receive, but you should never have that expectation to receive. And as long as you don't have that expectation of receiving anything back, everything will be smooth sailing. Because the more you give, the better you're going to be. It's good karma.
Yeah, no, I believe it, man. I believe that God created us in such a way that we're to be creators and to be givers, and that life is more about giving than it is getting, right? But we live in a culture that's me, me, myself, and I, and we forget sometimes that fulfillment will never truly be found in that. So definitely appreciate you sharing that. Let me ask you this. How does Victor define success? What is success to you?
Success, it's taking care of the people that you need to take care of, and making sure your health and happiness comes first, right? You can't ever help anyone else be successful or happy or love themselves or anything in that realm until you learn how to love yourself and appreciate yourself.
That's good.
Find happiness within yourself. So take care of yourself first, do the right things. always do the right thing, right? Integrity is super important.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you do that, everything will fall in line.
No, I love what you said. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I love what you said about self-care. This actually has come up in a couple of my podcasts, because a lot of times when we think of self-care, we think that's being selfish. But the reality is you can't help anyone else if you're not healthy, because we ultimately transfer to others what we possess ourselves, right? Absolutely. So it's hard to transfer to other people what we don't possess. Can you talk a little bit more about that self-care element?
Yeah. I mean, it's making sure, I mean, it always comes back to the self-awareness, right? You have to be very cognizant about where you are with yourself, right? If you're not feeling good, if you're not in a healthy, positive space, you need to find out what are those things that you can do to get yourself there. You always need to put yourself in that position where you can be the best version of you, so that you can give that best version of yourself to other people. So, you know, if you're feeling down, if you feel like you're a negative person, right? You have to have the self-awareness to know that you're a negative person.
Yeah.
And then you have to make a cognizant effort to stop being negative, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a lot, like you said, that energy transfers, right?
Yeah.
People feel it, they see it. You let it off on people sometimes, or a lot, depending on who you are, right? And if you really want to make the effort to stop doing that and to be better, you have to make a concerted effort to make sure that you don't do it anymore, right?
Sure.
Instead of saying negative things, talk positive, right?
Sure.
Putting positive things in your ears, listening to positive podcasts, reading good books, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that you watch on TV, everything that you intake completely determines what your output is. So
yeah.
You just have to have a lot of self-awareness about your surroundings, what you're reading, what you're watching, what you're saying, all that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I did a video this morning. I took a TikTok challenge last year, and I've been going strong now for about 8 or 9 months. And this video that I did this morning was, what we make room for the most is what we ultimately become the most like, right? Yeah. And you could say whatever content we consume the most is what we ultimately become the most like. Let me ask you something. Have you always been a pretty self-aware guy, or was there a pivotal moment in your life where it just kind of clicked and you go, man, I'm really seeing myself for the first time?
No, I think I've always, since a really, really young age, been really self-aware, and I've had a very good understanding of myself and the people around me. I felt like as I got to college, I lost some of that. And I became, I was the jock in college, and I lost sight of who I was for a short period there. But yeah, I feel like I've always had that awareness around me at a really young age. I mean, I can remember, 6th, 7th grade, like situations where I'm like, I don't need to be doing that. Like, I need to get myself away from this situation, or, people who were really hurt and were going through stuff emotionally, like recognizing that and saying, oh, I need to go and help them and talk to them and pull them to the side. Like things that I look at now and I'm like, man, like I was pretty advanced with my EQ at a very young age. So yeah, I can't remember there being a specific moment, but I do remember very, very young, always having self-awareness.
No, that's great, man. I totally agree. I would like to say that was me from a very young age, but it wasn't. I had some mentors have some really tough conversations with me, because it's hard, to look in the mirror and go, ooh, the problem is you, man. The problem is you. And it takes someone who really loves you, right, to kind of say, hey, this is not the best version of you. Let's tweak that. Let's work on that. So I definitely love what you're saying there. Let me ask this, because I want to go back. You said something about Cody speaking to you, or just saying something that really resonated to you. Cody likes to say details delay, right? I like to Yeah, I repackage it, and I teach people to take massive imperfect action. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times when you're taking that initial action, it is imperfect. Right? Because we think everything has to be perfect, but the reality is the goal is just to progress and get better, even if it's just 1% every day. Talk about that. as you got out of that conference and Cody speaks that, and it just resonates with you, what did that look like for a while? Was there some stumbling? Was there some discouragement? Was there some questioning?
No, not at all, man. Like when I got it, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go out and do it. Like, and it was at 8% where Sandra did her breakout. So I came out, that really resonated with me. Then Sandra killed it on her breakout, and I went back, the next day. Actually, no, it was the end of the last day of the conference, and it was like 9 p.m. and I'm like, I'm doing it. And I'm like, all right, 11 p.m. I'm making an announcement. 9 p.m. I got all my stuff in order. I got a bunch of speakers. I had 8 speakers lined up from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock, I made a post, didn't have a location set up, didn't have a date, anything. Started taking payments on tickets, and I just figured it out as I went. Details delayed.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, and I believe in being crystal clear, but it's interesting that when you take action, sometimes the clarity's not there, but when you just trust and, just full, complete betting yourself and go, this is going to happen no matter what, it's like the clarity begins to follow a lot of times. Right. Or at least that's the way it's been for me, is even I know where I want to go, but when everything's not in focus, I just take that action anyways. And it just seems like it falls into place little by little. Have you experienced that in your life as well?
Absolutely. And you know what? I train on this a lot. A lot of times we know what the answer is and we know what it is that we need to do. It's just a matter of getting the confirmation that we need to go and do it. And once we are able to go out and do it, everything falls in line. Because, listen, whether it's, I've never thrown a workshop or an event before, right?
Right.
It's not easy, but it's also not complicated.
Sure.
Right? Like you get a venue, you sell tickets, you get speakers, you put everything together, you make it nice, you get a format, right? That makes sense. If it's not something that you do on a day-to-day basis, then it's going to seem really daunting. Right. And it's difficult. You have to put in work, right? It's not easy. Nothing in this world is easy. But if you go out and do it, you're going to figure it out, right? It's impossible not to figure things out in this day and age. Like you have Google, you can Google, YouTube, anything. So almost everything that I've ever done, I've never done it before. There's no clarity until you actually go in and you're like, oh, this is what I need to do. Right. Like, this is how it makes sense to do it, where this is how someone who I watch who's also doing it is doing it. What can I take from there that I like and spin it and make it my own? So,
And I think you probably have seen this with the workshops, but I really love going to conferences and workshops where the people are just genuine, right? I'm a big advocate of excellence. I've taught excellence in church planning and ministry for years, as well as in the professional world. But I really believe I would go to somewhere where it's maybe the excellence wasn't as good, but the authenticity and the genuineness, and I could tell that they really wanted to serve me, makes up for that, right? Maybe they don't have as big a budget as this conference over here, but I have felt that the ones that I've had the most impact on my life are those ones that are just the most genuine and authentic.
Yeah. And I've the blueprint of the way I've built out my workshops has been with the vision of, first off, any speaker that goes on stage at an insurance growth workshop, there's no pitching products.
Sure.
We don't pitch you anything before or during the event, right? Or after the event. There's none of that. The events are super, it's engaging with the audience. So a lot of times in the middle of presentations, our speakers will start talking with the people in the crowd, right? The attendees, and having conversations and dialogue and answering things. Like it's completely different than most workshops and conferences. Because the way that we have it set up is like, there's no one leaves there ever feeling like, cool, I need to pay to get to the next event to get what I wanted out of it. Right. Like everything is value driven. You have to go in there with content that someone can take out and implement in their business the next day. That's 100% a necessity. And it's a lot of engaging. So when people come out, it's the overwhelming response from attendees is that like they loved it because they learned and they got to engage and ask questions in real time. And it's more, it's that piece that you don't get in bigger conferences, which is impossible to get. If you have, 500 people at an event, it's impossible for a presenter to take questions from everyone and still get out what they're trying to get. Right. At a smaller workshop, that's 8 hours worth of it. And it's by design, we have really limited seating, usually 20, 25 people tops. It allows enough time for everyone to get their questions answered and get the feedback that they need. And that's by design, we keep it small for that reason. So, I feel like that's what we do a little bit different than everyone else. We keep it small so that people can engage and get the most out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like going back to school and thinking about being in a really big class versus being in a really little class. So yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's good, man. Let me ask you this. Is there one leadership principle that really you've learned throughout your life, maybe that you really leaned into and that you lead from? I know we talked about teamwork earlier and all of that, but is there a principle, like a leadership principle that you can think, this is how I lead others, or this is how I'm aspiring to lead others?
Yeah. Lead by example.
Okay.
Right. You lead by example. You never teach on anything that you've never done by yourself, that you've done yourself. Always make sure that what you're teaching and what you're doing has had success and that you've mastered it. For me, it's really important that like everyone that I meet and deal with, if they're coming to me to learn something, that I'm giving them 110% of what I have. I don't leave anything back. Right. So I do a lot of trainings on sales. I do a lot of trainings on internet lead optimization, all these types of things. It's because I've done so much of it and I don't I don't hold anything back. You get 110% of everything that I've ever learned, how I did it and why I did it. Right. And I feel like when you lead by example and you show that you've done it and you've put the work in, no one can question your credibility. No one can question your integrity. And if you're giving everything out there, right, you give 110% of everything that you have, you don't hold anything back. People don't feel like, they've dealt with you and no one likes to feel like if I ask you a question and I'm asking for help and you only give me half of what you really know because you want to save the other half for later, or maybe you don't want to give me everything you know because you don't want me knowing your secret sauce or anything like that.
Right.
Not going to leave the best, taste in my mouth about that. So for me, it's really important of leading by example and giving everything out.
Sure. In these workshops, these people that you've mentored, you're teaching, is there a top barrier or a number one barrier that no matter what insurance, space they're in, is there a barrier that you see it's common with the people that you're mentoring that you feel like your workshops help them overcome?
So with every workshop that I have is themed. So if it's a paid workshop, there's always a theme built around it. So the first workshop that we did was the Rising Stars workshop. And I wanted to highlight people who were up and coming in the industry that might not have had, the spotlight that they should or will be getting. Right.
Sure.
So all the speakers that I had were people that I felt were in that light that should be moving up into the industry and becoming leaders in the industry. So that was that. The second workshop that we just had in Austin, it was the digital frontier. So it was some of the top people, Mike Moore, Matt Murray, Brad Hannon, Tony Merlin, Joe Sam, and David Camper. It was based all around the digital, right? The technology that we have within our agencies, because that's a pain point within a lot of agencies.
Right.
They don't have the technology. They don't have the automations. They don't know how to properly set up a website and optimize their SEO. Like all these little things that you hear people needing help with. Brought in speakers that were specialists on, their topics. And we set it up in a way that really aligned with that theme.
Gotcha.
So I do that. And then we do free workshops about 1 to 2 times every month. And we bring in different speakers who have different strengths in different lines of business. And we bring them in and they teach on different things. I had like Michael Benyaminov today of Sentinel Financial. Those workshops that we do for free, they're 15 minutes of training, one specific topic, so that you can implement it into your business as soon as you get out. You get 15 minutes to Q&A, 30 minutes in and out. And he was teaching how to market difficult cases in life insurance, right? So it's very, very specific, targeted topics. Gotcha. And that's kind of how I build everything. You just pay attention to what's going on in the industry. I'm in a lot of groups. I know what a lot of people complain about or need help with. And yeah, I know that answer is kind of a little general from what you asked, but
I like
that's the way that we build.
Yeah, I always kind of go back and process things through ministry because of being a church planner and pastor and in ministry for over 20 years. One of the things I used to teach young preachers is don't be the preacher that is answering questions that no one's asking, right? And it sounds like you are really listening to the audience, the industry, and you're answering questions, right? It's not just a conference where we all just go and get bombarded with stuff that's answering questions that no one's asking, right? Sounds like you've really honed in on that in your conferences or your workshops, I should say, are focusing on that. So kudos to you for listening to that because it's very much needed in our particular industry, and I believe in any industry. So no matter what industry you're in today, if you're watching this, take Victor's example here, right? Go listen to your audience, go listen to your people, and start preaching in such a way that you're answering the questions that they're really asking. Victor, I ask everybody this that comes on the podcast as we get ready to wrap up today. What is one word that you would use to describe yourself?
One word, I would say an elevator.
An elevator.
I like to elevate others.
Okay.
Right? Not like an actual elevator, but like.
No, I got you.
I like to elevate others. It's like I said, it's never about me. It's about bringing others around me up. And the more people I can help make an impact, the more impact I'm making. Indirectly. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I love that because I watched your facial expression there and you could tell that there was this joy, like this smile kind of came on your face. What kind of fulfillment do you see when you help elevate others? Can you share a little bit about that real quickly as we wrap up?
Yeah. I mean, it's the best feeling in the world to see other people live out their dreams and find happiness and joy. Nothing feels better than being able to help someone realize something that they're going after. And if I can help them achieve that, then that's all I want. Right. Like for me, I tell people this all the time. I want to give back to the industry that gave me everything. Right. Like the insurance industry literally saved my life. Like I was one of those people. I played baseball, thought I was going to play baseball forever. I literally had no plan B. Insurance fell on my lap. And has given me an incredible life for me and my family. Right. And coming from my family, I was able to do things that no one else in my family has been able to do. So for me, it's just this industry has given me so much. And if I can help others achieve what people have helped me achieve in this industry, then there's nothing more I can ask for.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, and then as we get ready to close here, what if there's somebody watching today who maybe had a plan A and thought this is what they were going to do with their whole life? Whether it's sports, whatever. And unfortunately, something happened as unexpected, right? We all know that none of us get a get out of jail free card to curveballs in this life, right? That we all have to suffer pain, adversity, challenges, storms. What is some advice that you would give to somebody right now who's about to quit, right? Or feels overwhelmed, doesn't know which direction to go? Do you just have some powerful words you could impart to them today?
Yeah, there's always a plan for you, and you just might not know what that is yet.
Yeah.
Just might not know what it is yet. So don't life's too short to stress about things that are out of your control. Sometimes you got to roll with the punches. So, like I said, for me, insurance was never, ever, ever part of the plan. It was never even a thought.
Right.
But this industry has highlighted so many of the things that translate from sports. And this was probably this was probably God's plan for me all along,
Sure.
And I just didn't know it. So, opportunities arise out of places that you'll never imagine. So that would be my advice.
Well, Victor, you have brought some serious fire today, man. I'm so appreciative that you came on the podcast. Tell us where we can find you. Are you on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram? Tell us where we can connect with Victor.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram, Vic Insures, VICINSURES. And you can find me on Facebook, Victor Julian Gonzalez.
Gotcha. Yeah, I will definitely put that in the description when this podcast drops in a few weeks. Well, Victor, once again, thank you so much for coming on. You definitely brought some fire today, man. And listen, I just want to look in the camera as we finish this out today, that I truly believe that all of you, as I said in the beginning, were made on purpose for a purpose. And isn't it about time to start living on purpose? Right? I pray that something that Victor said today and shared with us does more than motivates, but really deeply inspires you to say, you know what? This is my year. No matter what's happened in my life, I know that I can win in this thing called life, in this journey called life. And I pray that something we said today inspires you to bet on yourself, to really go for it this year. Because really, what do you have to lose, right? Just nothing to lose at all and everything to gain. And so as always, I want to encourage you once again, please subscribe below, turn on the notifications. That way you're alerted every time this content drops. Comment, let us know if something said today inspired you. Share this with someone who needs to hear this message. And as always, God bless you guys. Listen, you got to make it an awesome day. Sometimes days aren't that great, but you have a choice to make it an awesome day. And we'll talk to you soon.